Sometimes, life feels like it's coming apart at the seams. The plans you once trusted suddenly collapse. The relationships you thought would last forever dissolve without warning. And there you are, standing in the middle of it all, feeling as though you've been dropped into an endless ocean of chaos with no map, no anchor, and no way of knowing which direction to swim. In those moments, the mind begins its desperate search for answers. Why is this happening to me? What did I do wrong? How did everything go so terribly off course? It's a voice filled with fear, confusion, and the need to make sense of what feels senseless. But here's the truth, and it's deeper, far more mysterious than you might imagine. Nothing that's falling apart is a punishment. Nothing is random. There is a profound intelligence at work, one that is far greater than the human mind can comprehend. What feels like destruction is often reconstruction. The very fabric of your life is being rewoven not to hurt you, but to align you with something higher. The universe is not tearing you down. It is rearranging you. It's as if every event, every ending, every sudden shift is a hand placing puzzle pieces exactly where they need to be, even if from where you're standing, all you see are scattered fragments on the floor. I've lived through these moments myself. Times when I thought I'd reached the end of something important, and at first, I fought it. I resisted. I tried to force life back into the shape I thought it should take. But resisting what is, it's like trying to swim upstream in a raging river. The more you fight, the more exhausted you become. Only when you stop fighting, only when you allow yourself to float with the current, what do you discover that the river was never trying to drown you? It was carrying you to a new shore you couldn't see yet. This isn't just poetry. It's not wishful thinking. It's the meeting point of consciousness and quantum mechanics. At the deepest level of reality, your thoughts, your energy, your very presence are interacting with the field of existence itself. The universe doesn't respond to your words. It responds to your vibration. When you cling to fear, when you radiate mistrust, you resonate with experiences that match that frequency. But when you begin to soften, to trust, to open your heart even in the middle of chaos, something extraordinary happens. The same field that once seemed hostile or uncaring begins to reveal its hidden design. What looked like random events begin to connect like constellations in the night sky. Maybe you've experienced this before. A job ended, and you thought your life was over, only to later see how that very ending created space for something far more fulfilling. A relationship broke apart, and for a while, all you could feel was the emptiness. But with time, you realized that loss pushed you to grow into someone stronger, wiser, more whole. From a limited human perspective, these disruptions feel cruel, unfair, meaningless. But from the level of the soul, and from the perspective of the quantum field, they are precise, intentional, even loving. Imagine standing so close to a painting that all you see are messy brushstrokes and random colors. It looks chaotic, but when you take a few steps back, the image comes into view, and you realize it was a masterpiece all along. Life is like that. Right now, you may be too close to see the full picture, and that's okay. You don't need to understand every detail to trust the design. So, if you find yourself in the middle of collapse, I invite you to breathe. Place a hand on your heart, and remember this: you are not being punished, and you are not lost. You are being guided lovingly, intelligently, and with a precision beyond imagination. This is not the end of your story. It's the turning of a page, the beginning of a chapter your soul chose long before you ever arrived here. Everything happening right now is moving you toward the exact frequency, the exact moment, and the exact version of yourself you came here to become. And even when it feels like chaos, underneath it all, what's really moving through your life is love. 1. Disruption is the doorway to expansion. There comes a moment in life when everything you've built seems to crumble beneath your feet. The job you thought was secure disappears overnight. A relationship you believed would last a lifetime suddenly ends. The roles, identities, and routines you relied on to define who you are, they all begin to dissolve. And in that first moment, it feels like pure loss. It feels like death. I know that feeling well. It's as if you're standing in the middle of a house you spent years building by percent, watching it burn to the ground, and there's nothing you can do to stop the flames. Your instinct is to rush in, to save what you can, to cling to what's familiar, even if it no longer fits who you are becoming. But here's the truth, and it's a hard truth to face. What feels like destruction is often sacred reconstruction. It's not the end of your story, it's the breaking open of the shell that has been too small for your soul's expansion. Think of the caterpillar. Inside its cocoon, it doesn't simply sprout wings and fly away. No, it completely dissolves. Its very form melts into what looks like chaos. If you could peek inside, you might think the creature is dying, being destroyed. And in a way, it is. The old self cannot survive the transformation. But that so-called destruction is the exact process required for the butterfly to emerge. Without it, flight would never be possible. The same is true for us. When life falls apart, when the structures you once trusted collapse, it isn't punishment. It's not evidence that you've done something wrong. It's life's way of making space for something larger, more authentic, and more aligned with who you truly are. Most of us cling to the old because it's familiar. Even pain can feel like safety when it's predictable. But expansion asks you to step into the unknown. And stepping into the unknown often feels terrifying, like stepping off a cliff with no guarantee of what lies below. I've been there. I've felt that free fall. And what I've learned, over and over again, is that there is always a ground that rises to meet you. It may not appear the way you expect. It may not happen on your timeline, but it always arrives. Here's something to consider. Endings are not always endings. Sometimes they are invitations, quiet whispers from the universe saying, "There's more for you than this. You've outgrown the life you once lived." The challenge is that we can't see the bigger picture when we're in the middle of the breakdown. Imagine reading a novel and stopping halfway through. At that point, the hero has lost everything. The plot is tangled. The future is uncertain. If you didn't read on, you'd believe the story was nothing but tragedy. But if you turn the page, you discover how every twist, every heartbreak, every disruption was setting the stage for transformation. Life works the same way. The moment you're living through right now, the one that feels so unbearable, is not the final page. It's a necessary chapter that will lead to deeper understanding, greater love, and a version of yourself you couldn't even imagine before. When something old ends, space is created, and in that space, the new can finally be born. This is why loss, though painful, is sacred. It clears away what no longer serves you, so that your true self can emerge and expand. I know it's tempting to rush the process, to rebuild as quickly as possible, just to feel stable again. But sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is simply pause. Breathe. Let the ashes settle. Trust that within this emptiness, seeds are already being planted. Seeds of growth, of renewal, of a life that fits who you are becoming, not who you used to be. So, when you face disruption, try to see it not as a door slamming shut, but as a doorway opening. It may not feel like that right now. It may feel like darkness and confusion, but in time, as you step through, you'll realize you were never being destroyed. You were being transformed. The caterpillar doesn't understand the sky while it's still crawling on the ground. But one day, with wings fully formed, it soars. And so will you. 2. Quantum connection. Everything is interwoven. There is a quiet truth about life that often goes unnoticed until you've been through enough storms to see it clearly. At the deepest level of reality, nothing is separate. Every event, every encounter, every twist of fate is part of an intricate web that connects all things. When a relationship ends, when a door unexpectedly closes, when a stranger crosses your path and somehow changes the course of your life, none of it is random. It may feel random in the moment, even cruel at times, but underneath the surface, there is a profound order at work. Quantum physicists call this phenomenon entanglement. Two particles, no matter how far apart, can remain mysteriously connected so that the state of one instantly affects the other. Einstein himself was so puzzled by this that he famously referred to it as spooky action at a distance. But this spooky action isn't just happening in laboratories. It's happening all around you and within you. The same principle that binds particles together also binds experiences, people, and events in your life. What may appear to be separate threads are actually woven together in ways you can't yet see. Like an elaborate tapestry viewed up close. Think of it this way. Imagine standing with your nose pressed against a massive painting. All you can see are small, messy brushstrokes, a streak of red here, a smudge of gray there. From that close-up perspective, it makes no sense. It looks chaotic, even meaningless. But when you step back, the full image begins to emerge. You see how every stroke, no matter how random it appeared, was essential to creating the masterpiece. Life works in the same way. From where you stand today, you might only see fragments, a heartbreak here, a disappointment there, a moment of joy scattered in between. It feels disjointed. It feels like a series of unrelated events. But from the perspective of the universe, it's all connected. Every moment is carefully placed to guide your growth, to move you toward the person you are becoming. I've lived long enough to look back and trace the invisible threads. There were people who entered my life for only a brief season, yet their presence shifted my path in ways I couldn't understand at the time. There were devastating losses that, in hindsight, created space for something more aligned to arrive. At the time, I couldn't see the pattern. All I saw was pain. But now, with distance, I see how those very disruptions were synchronized with my evolution, like the perfect timing of waves, rising and falling on the shore. Sometimes, the universe uses endings as beginnings in disguise. A closed door isn't rejection, it's redirection. A chance meeting with a stranger isn't coincidence, it's alignment. Even the challenges, especially the challenges, are part of a grand, interconnected dance. It's like the nervous system of the cosmos itself is alive and breathing, each of us acting as individual cells, responding to signals from the whole. When you shift, the world around you shifts too. When someone on the other side of the planet makes a choice, it can ripple across the field and affect your life in ways you might never consciously know. And here's the beautiful part, even when you don't see the bigger picture, it's still unfolding perfectly. You don't need to hold all the threads in your hands to trust the weaving. Consider this, maybe the delays, the detours, the heartbreaks aren't obstacles at all. Maybe they are precise calibrations, guiding you toward the exact experiences your soul needs to grow. What feels like chaos today may one day reveal itself as harmony when you step back far enough to see the whole design. When you begin to live with this awareness, something softens inside you. The need to control, to force, to demand explanations starts to fade. You stop asking, "Why me?" and instead whisper, "Thank you. I trust that this, too, is part of the path." Every person who leaves, every unexpected opportunity, every twist of fate, they are all messengers from this vast, interconnected field. Some bring lessons of love, others of letting go, but all of them are here to serve your evolution. So, the next time life surprises you, whether with joy or with pain, pause for a moment, breathe, Remember that you are standing inside a living web of connection, so intricate that no single mind could ever fully grasp it. Trust that there are invisible threads weaving your story into something far greater than you can see today. You are never walking alone. Every step you take ripples out across the universe, and every ripple finds its way back to you, carrying guidance, healing, and transformation. In this truth, there is no randomness, no true separation, only the vast, mysterious beauty of everything being connected. 3. Letting go of control to find freedom. There's a deep instinct in all of us to hold on tightly, to try and manage every detail of our lives. We plan, we push, we organize, and we tell ourselves that if we can just get everything lined up perfectly, then we'll finally feel safe. We crave that sense of control because somewhere along the way, life taught us that chaos is dangerous and uncertainty is to be feared. I know that impulse well. For many years, I lived like a person gripping the edge of a cliff, terrified of what might happen if I loosened my hands. I believed that if I didn't fight to control every outcome, life would fall apart. But what I didn't see then, and what I've learned through painful, humbling experiences, is that control doesn't actually bring freedom. It brings tension, fear, and a constant undercurrent of exhaustion. Trying to control life is like trying to command the ocean. You can stand there yelling at the waves, demanding they behave the way you want, but the tide will still rise and fall on its own terms. The more you resist what is natural, the more drained you become. And sometimes, the harder you fight to hold on, the faster life slips through your fingers. The truth is, control is an illusion. At any given moment, you only see a fraction of the bigger picture, like looking at a single puzzle piece and trying to imagine the entire image. The universe, or whatever name you give to that greater intelligence, is orchestrating billions of moving parts at once, weaving a plan so vast and intricate that the human mind could never fully comprehend it. When you demand to be in control, you're limiting yourself to the tiny corner of reality you can see, while ignoring the grand design that's already unfolding for you. I once heard someone describe it like this: life is a river, and you are in a small boat. When you cling to control, it's as if you're frantically rowing upstream, against the current, exhausting yourself and going nowhere. But when you let go, when you stop forcing and instead trust the flow, the river itself carries you. It doesn't mean you stop taking action. It means you take inspired action, moving with the current instead of against it. I remember a time in my own life when everything seemed to be falling apart. The more I tried to fix things, the worse they became. Every conversation felt like a battle. Every decision like a heavy weight on my chest. Finally, when I was too tired to keep fighting, he just stopped. I sat in silence and said to life, "I don't know what to do anymore. Show me the way." And something remarkable happened. A calmness began to replace the panic. Opportunities I couldn't have planned for started appearing. People showed up at exactly the right moment with the help I needed. It felt as though the river had been waiting for me to release my oars so it could finally guide me forward. Letting go isn't about giving up or becoming passive. It's about trust. Trusting that there is a wisdom far greater than your own mind. One that knows exactly where you need to be and how to get you there. It's about loosening your grip and allowing life to surprise you. When you release control, something beautiful happens. Your body relaxes, your mind clears, and your heart softens. The decisions that once felt impossible begin to flow naturally. You stop overthinking every step and start moving with grace, like water finding its way around stones. Think of it like this: a bird doesn't try to control the wind. It spreads its wings and allows the wind to lift it higher. In the same way, you don't need to control every circumstance. Your task is simply to open your wings, your willingness, your faith, and let the current of life carry you. So, if you find yourself in a season of struggle, constantly rowing upstream, take a breath, set down your oars. Even for a moment, feel the river beneath you steady, powerful, and always moving toward what's next. When you let go, you don't lose direction. You find it, carried gently and surely to the place where you were always meant to be. 4. The quantum window, a moment for leaps of transformation. There are certain seasons in life when everything feels shaky, as if the very ground beneath you is shifting. The routines you've relied on no longer bring comfort. The beliefs you've held for years suddenly feel too small. Even the identity you've built for yourself begins to crack. It can be deeply unsettling, like watching the walls of a familiar house crumble, leaving you standing in a space that feels both terrifying and strangely full of possibility. These are not ordinary moments. They are rare, precious, and powerful. I call them quantum windows, brief openings, in time when the usual rules of growth don't apply. In most phases of life, change feels slow and steady, like climbing a mountain step by step. But during a quantum window, the path accelerates. The old patterns that once held you in place are loosened, as though the knots have been untied. Suddenly, you have the chance to make a profound shift, not over years, but in a single moment of clarity and courage. It's like standing before a doorway that wasn't there yesterday. You don't know what's on the other side, but you can feel it calling to you. If you pause, breathe, and step through with trust, you may find yourself in an entirely new reality, a new level of awareness, a new chapter of life that feels more authentic and expansive. But if you hesitate, if you cling to the old out of fear, the doorway begins to close, and the moment passes. I've lived through a few of these windows myself, and I can tell you, they don't come often. One of mine came at a time when everything I thought I could depend on fell apart at once. A relationship ended, my work collapsed, and even my sense of purpose vanished overnight. At first, I did what most of us do. I tried to rebuild the old structures as quickly as possible, to patch up the cracks and return to normal. But no matter how hard I tried, nothing worked. That's when I realized life wasn't asking me to go back. It was inviting me forward into something entirely new. In that raw space, I felt like a caterpillar dissolving inside a cocoon. It was frightening, yes, but also strangely liberating. When I finally stopped resisting and opened myself to the unknown, everything began to shift, not gradually, but all at once. Opportunities appeared that I could never have predicted. My perspective changed so profoundly that the problems I'd been clinging to no longer even made sense. Looking back, it was as though life had lifted me out of one timeline and set me down gently in another. These windows are not just about external change. They are primarily about inner transformation, a sudden leap in consciousness. You might wake up one morning and realize that you no longer believe the lies you once told yourself. You no longer see yourself as powerless or unworthy. You begin to sense a deeper part of you, a steady presence that has been there all along, waiting for you to notice it. And once you glimpse this truth, you can't go back to who you were before. But here's the thing. A quantum window requires courage. It will ask you to release the familiar, even if the familiar feels safe. It will ask you to trust without proof, to walk through a door you can't fully see. That kind of trust doesn't come from the mind. It comes from the heart, from the part of you that knows you are held by something greater. If you react with fear, if you cling tightly to what's falling apart, the window begins to close. Fear convinces you to rebuild the same old patterns, even when they no longer fit. But if you meet the moment with openness, even a small willingness to let go, you step into the flow of transformation, and life can move you forward with breathtaking speed. Imagine a musician tuning an instrument. For a long time, the notes sound off, messy, out of harmony. Then suddenly, there's a moment when the strings align. and the sound becomes clear and resonant. That's what a quantum window feels, like a brief alignment when everything in your life is ready to shift into harmony if you allow it. So if you find yourself in a season of upheaval right now, pay attention. You may be standing before one of these sacred openings. Breathe deeply. Listen closely. Trust that what feels like chaos is actually a recalibration, preparing you for a leap into a more authentic, more expansive version of yourself. And when that door appears, don't turn away. Step through it, even with trembling hands, because on the other side is a life you couldn't have imagined, one that feels more true, more whole, and more free than anything you've known before. 5. Chaos as intelligent order. There are moments in life when everything feels like it's falling apart, when nothing makes sense, and the world around you appears to be spinning out of control. Your plans collapse. Your relationships shift. The stable ground you once trusted crumbles beneath your feet. It's easy, in those moments, to believe that life is against you, that everything is random and unfair. I've been in that place before, standing in the middle of my own wreckage, wondering why everything felt so confusing, so messy. But over time, through pain and reflection, I've come to understand something deeply transformative. What we call chaos is often a higher form of order that we simply cannot see yet. Think of the universe at its smallest scale, the world of quantum particles. To the human eye, their movement looks wild and unpredictable, as if they're darting about with no purpose or direction. But under the right conditions, when they align with a specific frequency, these same particles suddenly form a perfect, coherent pattern. What once appeared as meaningless randomness becomes breathtaking harmony. Life works in exactly the same way. From where you stand today, you might only see fragments of painful breakup here, a lost job there, an opportunity that came and went too quickly. It feels like shattered pieces scattered on the floor. But if you could rise above and see from a higher perspective, you'd realize those very pieces are being placed with incredible precision, like a master artist arranging a mosaic. I once went through a season where everything seemed to be unraveling at once. My career shifted in ways I didn't expect. Relationships I relied on began to fade. Each day felt like waking up to another piece of my life crumbling. At the time, all I could see was the disorder. It felt like punishment, like failure. But years later, looking back, I could trace the invisible thread that ran through it all. Every loss had cleared space for something more aligned. Every unexpected turn had guided me to people and experiences I never would have found otherwise. The chaos wasn't random, it was rearrangement. It was life reorganizing itself around a higher truth I couldn't yet perceive. Imagine watching someone weave a tapestry. If you stand behind the loom, all you see are tangled knots and messy threads crisscrossing each other. It looks like a disaster, but from the front, the same threads form a stunning, intricate picture. Chaos is like that. When you are behind the loom, life looks messy and senseless. But if you could step to the other side, if you could see through the eyes of the universe, you would witness beauty beyond comprehension. Here's the challenge in the midst of chaos. We instinctively try to control, to fix, to make the picture look neat again. But sometimes, the mess is necessary. Sometimes, the breaking apart is the only way to make space for a new pattern to emerge. It's like clearing an overgrown garden before new flowers can bloom. The weeds must be pulled up by their roots. It's not pretty, and it's rarely comfortable, but it's essential. When you start to trust that there is intelligence in what seems chaotic, something shifts inside you. Your heart softens. The fear eases. You no longer see yourself as a victim of randomness, but as a participant in a greater dance, one that is far more intricate and benevolent than you imagined. This doesn't mean you'll always understand why things happen the way they do. Often, the meaning only becomes clear later, when enough time has passed for you to see the pattern. But even without clarity, You can choose to trust. You can choose to believe that every twist and turn is part of a larger design moving you toward growth, love, and truth. The next time life feels chaotic, pause for a moment. Close your eyes and imagine the quantum particles dancing, seemingly wild, yet secretly choreographed into harmony. Remind yourself that your life is like that too. What feels like disorder now may, in time, reveal itself to be the most precise and loving arrangement of all. You don't need to see the entire picture today. You just need to take the next step, to breathe, and to trust that the universe is working on a level far beyond what your mind can grasp. One day, you'll look back and see that the chaos was never chaos at all. It was grace in disguise, guiding you to exactly where you were meant to be. 6. The ego dissolves, so the true self can emerge. There are seasons in life when the pain you feel doesn't come from what is leaving you, but from what is falling away inside of you. It might look like you're grieving a relationship, a job, a dream, or an identity. But beneath the surface, something much deeper is taking place. It's not just an external loss, it's the unraveling of the ego, the old self you've carried for so long. The ego is not your enemy. It's a collection of stories, beliefs, and strategies you built to survive in a world that often felt uncertain or unsafe. As a child, you learned how to behave to receive love, how to hide parts of yourself to avoid rejection, how to construct an identity that would protect you from pain. This identity did its job for a time. It kept you safe. But like an old suit of armor, there comes a point when what once protected you now begins to weigh you down. The process of spiritual growth, of deep inner transformation, is not about destroying yourself. It's about gently removing what you are not, so that what you truly are can finally be revealed. And this is where the pain comes in, because letting go of the ego can feel like death. When the familiar stories you've told yourself begin to dissolve, there's a part of you that panics. It clings desperately to the old ways, even when those ways no longer serve you. It whispers, if I let go of this, who will I be? If I'm not this identity, will I even exist? I've been through that terrifying space myself. I remember nights lying awake, my mind racing, feeling as though I was losing everything, not just the external circumstances of my life, but the very sense of me that I had spent years building. It felt like standing on the edge of a cliff in total darkness, unable to see what lay ahead. And yet, through that darkness, something profound was happening. The false self was dissolving, making space for the true self to emerge. Your true self is not fragile. It is not defined by achievements, possessions, or roles. It is the steady presence that has been with you since your first breath. The quiet awareness that watches everything rise and fall without being carried away by it. This part of you is unchanging, complete, and deeply safe. It is the essence that remains, even when everything external is stripped away. Think of it like the sky. Storms may rage across it. Clouds may come and go, but the sky itself is untouched, vast, and open. The ego is like the storm, dramatic, noisy, and temporary. Your true self is the sky, always there, always whole. Whether you notice it or not, when the ego begins to crumble, it hurts not because you are being destroyed, but because you are releasing the illusions you once mistook for truth. It's like peeling away layers of an onion. Each layer may bring tears, but as you move deeper, you get closer to the pure core at the center. Every belief you let go of, every false story that falls away, brings you nearer to that unshakable center within you. At first, you might resist this process. That resistance is natural. The mind likes what is familiar, even if the familiar is painful. But as you begin to surrender, as you allow what no longer fits to dissolve, you create space for a deeper peace to emerge. It's not a peace you have to earn or create. It's the peace that was always there beneath the noise. This is why, paradoxically, the most painful seasons of life are often the most transformative. The outer losses, the endings, the heartbreaks, the changes are not punishments. They are the external reflections of an inner shift, signals that your soul is ready to step into a more authentic way of being. One day, you will look back and realize that what you thought was breaking you was actually breaking you open. The cracks weren't signs of weakness. They were openings through which light could finally enter. And from that light, the truth of who you are will shine forth, not as a role, not as an identity, but as the living presence of awareness itself. So if you are in the midst of this unraveling now, be gentle with yourself. Breathe through the discomfort. Trust that nothing essential can ever be lost. The ego may tremble and resist, but your true self, that quiet, luminous core within, remains steady and whole. As the old self dissolves, you will discover a freedom you've never known before. And in that freedom, you will come to see that who you really are has been there all along, patiently waiting to be remembered. 7. The frequency of trust and love. There's a quiet truth about life that many of us overlook. The universe isn't responding to the words we speak, or even the thoughts we think. It's responding to the energy we radiate, the silent frequency that flows from our hearts and bodies into the space around us. You've probably felt this without realizing it. Think of a time when you walked into a room and, without anyone saying a word, you sensed tension, so heavy you could almost taste it. Or maybe you met someone for the first time and felt an instant warmth, a sense of safety, as though you'd known them forever. Those experiences weren't about words, they were about energy. We are constantly broadcasting signals, whether we're aware of it or not. The universe listens to those signals. It doesn't hear "I'm fine" when inside you're filled with fear. It doesn't respond to a smile if, beneath it, your energy is vibrating with resentment or despair. Instead, it mirrors back the true frequency you're emitting, much like a tuning fork resonates with the exact note it receives. This isn't magic. It's not a mystical concept you have to blindly believe in. It's natural law. As real as gravity, quantum physics has shown us that like attracts like, not through luck or coincidence, but through resonance. When particles vibrate at the same frequency, they naturally come together, forming patterns of perfect alignment. And you, as a living, breathing being, are no different. You are a field of energy, constantly interacting with the greater field around you. Here's what that means in the context of your life. When you are steeped in fear, everything you do, every decision you make, carries that energy with it. Fear tightens the body, narrows the mind, and signals to the universe that you are preparing for danger. As a result, you begin to notice more situations that match that fear. It's like wearing glasses tinted with anxiety everywhere you look. You'll find evidence to confirm it. I've lived in that space before. I know what it's like to wake up every day expecting things to go wrong, carrying a heaviness that colors every interaction. Back then, I didn't realize that my own energy was shaping my reality. I thought the world was simply cruel or unfair. But as I began to work through my pain, something shifted. When I started choosing trust even in small ways, even when I didn't feel ready, life began to reflect that back to me. I saw tiny signs of support, a kind word, at the perfect moment, an opportunity I hadn't expected. A sense of ease, slowly replacing the constant tension. Trust and love are powerful frequencies. They expand you. Where fear contracts and closes, trust opens and allows. When you operate from love, your body softens, your mind clears, and you begin to feel connected not only to others, but to the intelligence that flows through all of life. Imagine yourself as a radio tower. If you're broadcasting on the frequency of fear, you'll only receive stations that match that signal: conflict, limitation, and struggle. But when you shift to the frequency of trust and love, an entirely different world opens up. The people you meet, the opportunities that arise, even the way you perceive challenges, everything begins to align with the energy you've chosen to embody. This shift doesn't happen by forcing yourself to think positive. It happens when you genuinely feel the vibration of trust, even if it's just for a moment. It might begin with a single breath, a pause in which you whisper to yourself, "I am safe right now," or with an act of kindness, extended to someone else or to yourself. Each time you choose love over fear, you strengthen that signal, and the universe responds in kind. At first, it may feel subtle. You might notice a small synchronicity here, a little blessing there, but over time, these ripples grow into waves. Your external reality begins to transform not because life suddenly decided to favor you, but because you finally matched the frequency of what you've been longing for all along. When you look at it through this lens, you realize that trust isn't passive. It's an active, powerful choice to align with a higher vibration, even when the world around you seems uncertain. And love isn't just an emotion, it's the most coherent frequency there is, a force that brings harmony to what once felt fractured. So the next time you catch yourself gripped by fear or anger, pause, breathe deeply. Remember that you are broadcasting a signal, and you have the ability to choose which station to tune into. Choose trust, not because it guarantees a smooth path, but because it opens you to a reality where even the bumps in the road have meaning. Choose love, not because it makes you naive, but because it connects you to the truth of who you are. This isn't a miracle. It's a dance between your inner world and the outer universe. And as you change your frequency, you'll see that the universe doesn't just hear you, it sings back to you in harmony. 8. You are living in a time of humanity's awakening. There are moments in history when the entire world seems to tremble, when the old ways of living no longer hold, and something entirely new begins to emerge. If you've been feeling disoriented, overwhelmed, or strangely unmoored lately, you are not alone. What you are sensing is far greater than your personal story. It is collective. It's not just you who is changing. Humanity itself is undergoing a profound transformation. For centuries, our world has been shaped by systems built on fear, control, and separation. We were taught to see ourselves as separate from nature, separate from one another, even separate from our own inner wisdom. Entire structures of society were designed to reinforce this illusion. Hierarchies of power, beliefs that pit people against each other, and cycles of competition that kept us in survival mode. And for a long time, these patterns worked. They provided order, even stability. But like an old bridge that can no longer bear the weight of what it carries, these systems are now collapsing under the pressure of evolution. You can see it everywhere in governments struggling to maintain balance, in institutions once thought unshakable, now crumbling, in communities rising to demand something more just, more compassionate. It may look like chaos on the surface, and in many ways, it is. But just as a forest fire clears space for new growth, this collapse is not the end. It is a clearing, a necessary release, to make room for a new way of being, to take root. I've felt this in my own life. There were times when I thought the pain I was experiencing was entirely personal, my relationships, my career, my inner battles. But as I listened more deeply, I began to sense that my struggles were connected to something much larger. It was as though the same current of transformation running through me was also flowing through the entire world. And the more I spoke to others, the more I realized we are all feeling it. Each of us is a thread in the great tapestry of humanity. And when one thread shifts, the whole pattern begins to move. This is why your personal healing matters so much. When you face your fears, when you release old wounds and step into trust, you are not only changing your own life, you are contributing to the awakening of the collective. Every act of courage ripples outward. Every moment of love you choose over fear sends a signal to the whole. Like a drop of water, causing waves across a still pond, it's easy to feel powerless in the face of global challenges. The problems seem too vast, too complex, for any one person to solve. But remember, this transformation doesn't always begin with grand gestures. It begins quietly, within the human heart. When even one person awakens to the truth of their interconnectedness, the frequency of the whole field begins to shift. You don't have to fix the world. You only need to embody the new way of being, and in doing so, you help create it. Think of humanity like a great organism. For generations, we've been living with outdated patterns, much like a body carrying an old injury. At first, the pain is manageable, but over time, it becomes unbearable. Eventually, the body must heal, or it will break down completely. Right now, we are in that healing process. It is messy, it is painful, and yet, beneath the discomfort, there is extraordinary intelligence at work. The old structures of fear and division are falling because they cannot support the higher frequencies of love, compassion, and unity that are rising. Just as your personal life sometimes needs to unravel to make space for growth, the collective must go through its own unraveling. What feels like the end of the world is, in truth, the birth of a new one. You were born for this time. Your soul chose to be here, in this very moment of history, to witness and participate in this transformation. When you feel hopeless or afraid, remember you are not just reacting to change, you are part of the change itself. Your presence, your choices, your healing journey are all vital threads in this emerging fabric of humanity. So when the news feels heavy, when the world looks fractured, come back to your breath. Come back to the small, sacred choices you can make to listen instead of judge, to forgive instead of resent, to open instead of close. These choices matter. They are the seeds of the new world being born through us. One day, future generations will look back on this era, not as a time of destruction, but as a time of awakening, when humanity remembered who we truly are, connected, whole, and capable of extraordinary love. And they will see that people like you, quietly choosing healing and trust in the midst of uncertainty, were the ones who held the light for everyone else to find their way. You are not just living through history, you are helping to create it. And though the journey may be difficult, never forget, what is emerging is worth every step. Because it's not only the world that is transforming, it is all of us. Together, rising into something far more beautiful than we have ever known. 9. The inner silence, where all answers are found. There is a kind of noise that has nothing to do with the outside world. It doesn't come from traffic or crowded rooms or ringing phones. It comes from within the endless chatter of the mind, the racing thoughts, the constant cycle of worry and planning and replaying the past. When you're caught in this inner storm, it can feel like you're drowning in waves of what if and why me. You try to think your way to clarity, to solve every problem by analyzing it from every angle. But somehow, the harder you try, the more tangled you become. It's like struggling in quicksand. Every frantic movement just pulls you in deeper. I know this feeling well. For much of my life, I believed that if I just thought harder, if I worked my mind like a muscle, I would eventually figure everything out. But there came a point when my thinking didn't bring clarity. It only brought exhaustion. My mind was so loud that I couldn't hear anything else. Not my body, not my heart, not the quiet whispers of the universe guiding me forward. The truth I've discovered, through many difficult seasons, is that answers don't always come from thinking. They often come from listening, but not in the way we usually listen. This is a listening that happens in stillness, in the spaces between breaths, in the silence beneath the noise. Imagine a pond, stirred by wind. When the surface is choppy, you can't see what lies beneath the water. But when the wind dies down and the surface becomes still, everything below is revealed with perfect clarity. Your mind works the same way. When it's agitated by fear and worry, your inner vision is clouded. But when you pause and let yourself grow still, truth begins to rise from the depths. I remember one night during a time of great upheaval. My life felt like it was falling apart. I was desperate for direction, for some sign of what to do next. I sat in the dark, searching my mind for a plan, replaying conversations, imagining every possible outcome, and nothing helped. Finally, out of sheer exhaustion, I closed my eyes and took a slow, deep breath. For the first time in weeks, I didn't try to solve anything. I just sat there, breathing, and in that stillness, something unexpected happened. A quiet knowing emerged. It wasn't a loud voice or a dramatic revelation. It was simple, like a soft light shining in a dark room. I knew what my next step was, not the whole path, just the very next step, and it was enough. This is what happens when you enter the space of inner silence. A deeper intelligence speaks not the frantic voice of the ego, but the steady, gentle guidance of your true self and the universe itself. This guidance is always there, like a radio signal, constantly broadcasting, but most of the time we're too noisy inside to receive it. The beauty is, you don't have to go to a mountain retreat or meditate for hours to access this silence. Sometimes, it's as simple as pausing in the middle of your day, closing your eyes for a moment, and taking a single conscious breath. With that breath, you create a little space between you and your thoughts. In that space, you begin to hear, and here's the paradox often. The answers you've been chasing don't come through action or effort. They come through presence. When you stop running, stop striving, and simply be here, the next step naturally reveals itself. It's like standing in a dark forest at night. You don't need to see the entire path. You just need the next patch of light. And as you walk forward, step by step, more of the path appears. The world we live in constantly urges us to move faster, to do more, to push harder. But sometimes, the wisest thing you can do is the opposite: to be still, to sit quietly with yourself, and remember that you are part of something vast and intelligent, something that already knows the way forward. So the next time you feel lost or overwhelmed, try this: stop for a moment. Place your hand over your heart. Close your eyes. Breathe deeply. And listen not to your mind's chatter, but to the silence underneath it. It may feel strange at first, but if you keep showing up to this stillness, you'll begin to sense the quiet presence that has been with you all along. Sometimes, the most profound wisdom doesn't come as a shout or a sign from the outside world. It comes as a whisper from within. And when you learn to trust that whisper, you'll discover that even in your darkest moments, you are never without guidance. The silence itself becomes your teacher, your compass, and your source of peace. The silent design behind it. All life is not a random string of disconnected events. It only looks that way when we are standing too close to see the full picture. Every challenge you faced, every ending that shattered you, every moment when your heart felt broken beyond repair, they are all brushstrokes on a canvas so vast, so intricate, that only the universe itself can see the masterpiece it's becoming. There was a time in my life when I believed I was cursed, when it felt like the world was against me. I fought every change, grieved every loss, as if it were proof that I had somehow failed. But with time, and through many nights spent sitting in the darkness with myself, I began to notice something extraordinary. The very things I thought were breaking me were actually shaping me. The losses weren't punishments, they were preparations. Each one carved out space for something greater to enter my life. Something I couldn't have imagined while I was still clinging to the old. From that perspective, Chaos began to look less like destruction and more like deliberate rearrangement. It was as if the universe had been guiding me all along, even when I couldn't see its hand. And slowly, I came to understand I am not a victim of circumstances. I am consciousness itself, temporarily experiencing the highs and lows of being human. I am not here to be crushed by life, but to learn to dance with it. You, too, have this power. You are not just a character in a story being written by fate. You are the storyteller, the one who chooses what meaning to give to each chapter. And when you realize this, you can rewrite the narrative you've been living. You can choose to tell a story that says you are loved, you are guided, and everything, yes, even the painful, confusing, heartbreaking parts is serving your highest evolution, and, in some mysterious way, the evolution of all humanity. When you live from that knowing, everything begins to transform. What once felt like pure chaos starts to reveal itself as intelligent order. Loss becomes a doorway instead of a dead end. Moments of uncertainty turn into invitations to grow closer to yourself, to others, and to the great mystery that holds us all. This doesn't mean life will always be easy. There will still be storms, still be nights when you feel lost or afraid. But in the midst of it all, you will carry a quiet trust. You will know that every storm eventually passes, and with it comes renewal, just like the earth after the rain. When you walk in this trust, something profound happens. You don't just heal your own life, you become a living example of what's possible. Your courage, your willingness to love through the pain, becomes a beacon for others. And little by little, as more of us live this way, the world itself begins to heal. The collective story shifts, because each of us is adding a new page, one filled with compassion, connection, and hope. So, take a deep breath right now. Feel the steady rhythm of your heart beating in your chest, a reminder that life is flowing through you with perfect timing. Inhale slowly, and with that breath, release the need to have it all figured out. Exhale, and trust that you are exactly where you're meant to be in this moment. Remember this truth: everything happening right now has a reason, and that reason is love. Not the fragile, conditional love we often see in the human world, but the vast, unshakable love that is the very foundation of existence. Walk forward with this knowing. Live as though every step you take is guided because it is. And as you do, you will discover that what once felt like chaos was always the universe arranging things perfectly, leading you not just to a better life, but to a deeper understanding of who you truly are.